Welcome back to the Always Thinking Mindset channel, where we give you positive vibes and simple rules to achieve your goals. In today's video, we're going to speak on should I start an LLC? Now, this is a major question I always get from my clients, but on top of that, they always ask me, especially because I'm a lawyer. But at the same time, I give the same reply as it all depends. But before we start, I want to give a legal disclaimer that I am a lawyer. I'm just not your lawyer. So if you have any big purchase, and do not take any of this as legal advice, don't listen to a guy on the internet. But not only that, whenever you make a big purchase or you take any kind of consideration, please consult with a professional on your own. Like I said, I am a lawyer. I am just not your lawyer. And also, if you like today's video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. It does help the algorithm. And if you love this channel, you already know what to do. So the main question, the main course for today is, should I start an LLC? Hmm, it depends, right? Because what are you trying to do with this LLC? Are you trying to have a company so you can invest in property? Are you trying to start a business? Are you just getting off the ground? Or are you developed and you're actually a major big brand? Which leads me to my first rule. What is the purpose, right? Because the purpose of an LLC is asset protection. What does asset protection mean? That means if you own a business, collateral, anything that has a value to it, then you have to put certain things into it to protect it, and protect it from what? Lawsuits, right? Because everybody thinks that if you're in a business or you run a business, you own billions of dollars and they want to get to your pocket. So you got to ask yourself, what is the purpose of an LLC? Why am I trying to establish an LLC? And like I said, it's more for an asset protection. It's to keep individuals from not only suing you personally, but suing the entity itself. You got to understand what an LLC stands for. It's a limited liability company, not a corporation. They don't like to be associated with that, but an LLC is a single entity separate from you. And the way I always explain to clients, you have to have this buffer so they don't enter into your personal assets and try to sue you later if anything happens during the course of the business. Now, when you become an entity, you actually become a separate person. According to the laws, that an LLC is a different entity from the person itself. Now you can do one of two things. It depends on various states and jurisdictions, but you can become either a managing member or a managing manager. Now, like I said, do not take any of this as advice. This is just a general overview, but whenever you have an LLC, it actually does benefit you because at the same time, not only does it look professional, but it actually sets the buffer from people suing you or trying to sue you or doing anything in general. Not only that, banks will look at that to see how well equipped you are and how much you can handle. Now, with that being said, you have to treat it like a business, right? Because an LLC, it's pretty much a business in itself. What does this mean? That means you have to register it within the state, and not only that, you have to pay federal taxes on it, which is your EIN number, which the IRS gives you in order to track all your amounts, because Uncle Sam wants to know how much you make in that business. But not only that, you have to act accordingly to the business, right? What does this mean? You have to go to the bank. You have to come up with a business account, not a personal account, and they need certain documents to understand that this is an entity itself, and you have to, or you will be doing transactions based on the company, right? You have your own personal, which is okay, but at the same time, do not, and this is where I tell all my clients, do not commingle funds, right? You can't transfer and use business resources for personal or personal for business. No, no, no. Keep them two separate houses, two separate structures. Treat it as a business, right? And at the same time, this is going to benefit you from piercing the corporate veil. That is a fancy term because at the same time, whenever the lawsuit does come, They will generally ask for information, discovery, all your transactions, and to actually establish whether this is a single and individual entity so they can't get to your personal pockets. Now, that was pretty lengthy, but at the same time, we're moving on to our second rule. You got to understand, LLCs have a benefit. What is the benefit? The benefit is pretty much the tax benefits, right? Because there's certain things your business can write off that you generally can't write off as a personal person. It just looks better for the IRS or for the government because they're actually seeing the transactions that go on pertaining to your business. Now, tax benefits, always consult with a professional, CPA, or any kind of tax advisor concerning your circumstance. But you got to understand the tax laws, anything that are ordinary and necessary to your business, then it should be a tax write off. But don't just listen to me. Like I said, go do your research. But these are the tremendous benefits of owning an LLC, right? Because now it's pertaining to your business. That means you can go out and anything for the business will usually be considered a tax write off. But please check in with your CPA before you do any kind of transaction. But that is one of the perks of having an LLC because you are a company, you are a business, you own it. Well, you manage it. And that is a big perk. So, like I said, you have to learn how to keep your business entity separate from your personal entity. I cannot, well, not personal entity, but just personal accounts because I cannot stress that enough. There's a lot of people that they set up LLCs, they just leave it there, or they use it one time, or sometimes they use it for the personal, and it just starts getting a mess. And I'm sure your CPA and your tax professional will thank me later, but just think of two different boxes. That's all it is, right? You have your personal and you have your business, and keep it that way. Keep it. Everything, just ask the question: is it for my business? Is this personal? Can I write this off? These are questions you have to tell yourself because later on during the year, if you get audited, and at the same time, they're going to want to see all those transactions, right? When I say they, the government, the IRS, and this is just a way of getting rid of the headache or not just going down that road. So, when you have an LLC, it's not only good for asset protection, tax benefits, but it just has the professional look that you want, right? Whenever you give somebody a card, it's not just your name, it's actually your business name. You know, your contact information. This sets up in their mind that you are serious, right? That all you do is this business, and at the same time, you're able to advertise, get with others, and just start, don't have a heyday with it and buy a billboard and stuff like that. First, get your clientele, but at the same time, you always treat it as a business. You have the professional look. People tend to respect that more because they see that you're serious, that you're putting time into something and effort, and at the end, like I said, you're creating value for not only yourself but for the business now, right? You are a business. I cannot say it enough. LLC, whatever, ABC, garage door, LLC, whatever your train or work line of work is. And this is, like I said, it just helps out just the professional realm of how clean it is, what to look at, and that's always something good to have because in this day and age, you meet anybody and everybody has a business. But when it comes down to it, whether it's tax filings or paperwork or your operator's agreement, which is within the LLC, nobody has it, right? Because they're just lying or they don't understand, they don't fully informed that you have to have an established LLC registered with the state. But at the same time, that is for another video of how to do it, how to register for an LLC. Each jurisdiction is different. They're going to require different documents. But just having the LLC at hand is a great idea, whether it's investment purposes or you're trying to start a business. Because what happens is if you don't establish yourself from a business, then let's say you start a business, but you never open up an LLC. So what do they consider you as? So proprietor. So at the same time, now you're able to still conduct transactions and business transactions, but now everything's directly to you in your personal account. So if they get a judgment against you, they will go after your personal assets. And depending on the judge and jurisdiction, there's other factors involved. But do you really want to go down that road, right? Because litigation is slow, long, and it will eat a lot of your time. And speaking from a lawyer that does this, I can tell you it is not worth the trouble. Leads me to my last rule. What is the overall goal? I explain to my clients what's the purpose or what are you trying to do in general? Because if you do start an LLC, right, it takes time, it takes money, it takes paperwork. And if you're just starting off and you have no business, you have no clientele, or you're just thinking about opening an LLC, then I'm gonna say no. I'm sure this is not worth it, or this can wait. But if you are established and you actually want to build momentum, you want to create financial wealth, but on top of that, you see yourself in the long run of having a business and conducting plenty of transactions, then I would say yes. Go ahead and create the LLC. This is going to protect you far better than anything. Like I said, there is no silver bullet. I always explain to clients, plenty of clients, that you live in America, right? What does this mean? You can get sued for anything at any time. But at least with the LLC, it kind of creates this buffer to prevent you from any kind of risk involved. Not to say that there's no risk, it just limits the risk. So an LLC is for liability purposes. When I say liability purposes, yes, we all want to make money, but sometimes, there are disagreements, and there's a lot of fighting going on, and someone always feels they get shorthanded, and next thing you know, a lawsuit is filed, and next thing you know, you get dragged into court explaining yourself whether it happened or not. Now, you got to understand, lawsuits are everyday things. This is what I deal with. This is my full-time job, not including my YouTube channel here. Please subscribe. But at the same time, you got to understand that lawsuits, anybody can get sued. Whether you did it or not, it doesn't matter. You have to prove, you have to go and defend yourself. But it just makes it easier whenever you separate and have a separate entity from your own personal life. Get those two separated. I cannot stress that enough. Because as a lawsuit incurs, once you get sued, the other person, they want money. They want billions of dollars that they hear from commercials, and they convince these people that you have $1 billion and they want to be retired and all this good stuff. But in the end, please protect yourself, especially if you own a business or you're trying to start a business, get into the real estate market, deal with transactions, deal with multiple people. This is going to help you in the end. And like I said, I cannot stress this enough. LLCs are for asset protection, not including the tax benefits we spoke on. But I always ask the clients, what is your long-term gain here? Because, like I said, if it's just for this short amount of time or this transaction or this one-time fix and flip, I don't know if you should, right? But if this is your livelihood, this is all you do, and this is all you want to do, then go ahead, start the LLC, get it up and running, get it registered right, get your operating agreement in order, and don't stay away. This is my personal opinion, but you know, whenever you go through these .com lawyer deals, it's just a boilerplate template system. Get with an attorney. He's going to look out for your best interest, but not only that, he's going to incorporate what you want from it, right? And put it in the contract, because what happens is nobody reads the contract until they get into a dispute. And then when the contract shows up, you're like, "What? I thought I had it in there and you didn't have it." Right? Whether it's a clause or something that protects you in the end. Like I always tell clients, what is the long-term gain? Are you looking for just a short, transaction, or you're actually doing this as your livelihood and could potentially go somewhere? In the end, an LLC is going to protect you. It doesn't hurt to have one, but just what is the goal? What is the why, right? Because I always hear the question, should I start an LLC? Should I do this? I got 3 LLCs in 3 different states, and this state's, more friendly than this. And I'm just like, stop. What is the goal? What are you trying to do? Because everybody is in a different level. And I kind of have to explain this to everybody that, just because what works for this guy doesn't mean it works for this one as well, especially with income, right? Because this guy might receive more tax incentives, but in the end, should you start the LLC? Yeah, why not? Go ahead. Especially if you're in the business, if you're going to do this long term, and you're actually looking to protect yourself in a situation. Not to say you will never get sued. All it means is lessens the risk. It actually helps you in the end, and you have to kind of be smart about it. But that ends today's video. I really hope you got tremendous value on this. I hope to do a continuous on an LLC, what it means, the breakdowns, how to register, stuff like that. But that's for a later video. But if you took value from this video today, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. And if you like the channel, then you already know what to do. And until next time, folks, we will speak soon.